Hare Krishna. It's January 31st, 2024. And like we standardly, following Srila Prabhupada, we read Srimad-Bhagavatam in the morning, class and discussion. And at the beginning of each volume, like if we have a 30-volume set or a 10-volume set, Srila Prabhupada includes his preface that he wrote in 1962. And so I like the idea of once in a while, we read Srila Prabhupada's preface that is there at the beginning of each volume. I know when I read through the different volumes, I don't usually read the preface. And remember several years ago, maybe 8 years ago, we read the preface, discussed that. So I thought to do that today. Srimad-Bhagavatam, Srila Prabhupada's preface. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Narayanam Namaskritya Naram Chaiva Narottamam Devim Sarasvatim Vyasam Tato Jayamudirayat. Before reciting the Srimad-Bhagavatam, which is the very means of conquest, one should first offer respectful obeisances unto the personality of Godhead Narayan, unto Narayan Rishi, the supermost human being, unto Mother Sarasvati, the goddess of learning, and unto Srila Vyasadeva, the author. Nasta prayeshva bhadreshu nicham bhagavata seveya bhagavat yuttama shloke bhaktir bhavati naishtiki. All right, so we're reading Srila Prabhupada's preface to the Srimad-Bhagavatam. Actually, I see Prabhu just came on. I'm remembering the last time that we read the preface as part of the program was in 2016 after Prampra and I returned from Bangalore. And there was a program at your place, Prampra, in Gainesville, and we read and discussed Srila Prabhupada's preface. So I'm going to read through it, and we can give our attention there. So again, this was written in 1962, a few years before Prabhupada left India to come to the United States. We must know the present need of human society. And what is that need? Human society is no longer bounded by geographical limits to particular countries or communities. Human society is broader than in the Middle Ages, and the world tendency is toward one state or one human society. I'll read that again. This is from Srila Prabhupada's preface to Srimad-Bhagavatam. Human society is broader than in the Middle Ages, and the world tendency is toward one state or one human society. The ideals of spiritual communism, according to Srimad-Bhagavatam, are based more or less on the oneness of the entire human society, nay, of the entire energy of living beings. The need is felt by great thinkers to make this a successful ideology. Srimad-Bhagavatam will fill this need in human society. It begins, therefore, with the aphorism of Vedanta philosophy, Janmadhyasya yataha, to establish the ideal of a common cause. So Srila Prabhupada, he's quoting from the first line of the first verse of the 18,000 verse Bhagavatam. Well, really, the very first line is Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. And then Vyasadeva goes Janmadhyasya yataha aditaratas babigeshu svara. Janmadhyasya yataha. Human society at the present moment is not in the darkness of oblivion. It has made rapid progress in the field of material comforts, education, and economic development throughout the entire world. But there is a pinprick somewhere in the social body at large, and therefore there are large-scale quarrels, even over less important issues. There is need of a clue as to how humanity can become one in peace, friendship, and prosperity with a common cause. Srimad-Bhagavatam will fill this need, for it is a cultural presentation for the re-spiritualization of the entire human society. Srimad-Bhagavatam should be introduced also in the schools and colleges, for it is recommended by the great student devotee Prahlad Maharaj in order to change the demoniac face of society. And then Prabhupada quotes Prahlad Maharaj, first verse of the 6th chapter of the 7th canto. Kamara charat pragyo dharman bhagavatani ha durlabam manusham janma tarapyatruvam artadam. Prahlad Maharaj is talking to his kindergarten schoolmates in that part of the Bhagavatam. Prabhupada continues, disparity in human society is due to lack of principles in a godless civilization. There is God, or the Almighty One, from whom everything emanates, by whom everything is maintained, and in whom everything is merged to rest. Material science has tried to find the ultimate source of creation very insufficiently, but it is a fact that there is one ultimate source of everything that be. This ultimate source is explained rationally and authoritatively in the beautiful Bhagavatam, or Srimad-Bhagavatam. Srimad-Bhagavatam is the transcendental science not only for knowing the ultimate source of everything, but also for knowing our relation with him and our duty towards perfection of the human society on the basis of this perfect knowledge. It is powerful reading matter in the Sanskrit language, and it is now rendered into English elaborately, so that simply by a careful reading, one will know God perfectly well, so much so that the reader will be sufficiently educated to defend himself from the onslaught of atheists. Over and above this, the reader will be able to convert others to accepting God as a concrete principle. Srimad-Bhagavatam begins with the definition of the ultimate source. It is a bona fide commentary on the Vedanta Sutra by the same author, Srila Vyasadeva, and gradually it develops into 9 cantos up to the highest state of God realization. The only qualification one needs to study this great book of transcendental knowledge is to proceed step by step, cautiously, and not jump forward haphazardly, like with an ordinary book. It should be gone through chapter by chapter, one after another. The reading matter is so arranged with its original Sanskrit text, its English translation, synonyms, translation, and purports, so that one is sure to become a God-realized soul at the end of finishing the first 9 cantos. The 10th canto is distinct from the first 9 cantos because it deals directly with the transcendental activities of the personality of Godhead, Sri Krishna. One will be unable to capture the effects of the 10th canto without going through the first 9 cantos. The book is complete in 12 cantos, each independent, but it is good for all to read them in small installments, one after another. I must admit my frailties in presenting Srimad-Bhagavatam, but still I am hopeful of its good reception by the thinkers and leaders of society on the strength of the following statement of Srimad-Bhagavatam, Canto 1, Chapter 5, Text 11. So this is a verse, Narada Muni speaking to Vyasadeva, and Narada Muni has just previously told Vyasadeva, like, you compiled all the Vedas, Tatvayasam Tirtam, and they're like a pilgrimage place for crows. Crows go to where there's dead bodies and trash. And then now Narada Muni's describing the actual literature that glorifies directly the pastimes of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, even if it's imperfectly composed. So we can read. We'll read Narada Muni's Sanskrit and then Prabhupada's translation of this a very fundamental verse of Srimad-Bhagavatam. Tad bhag visargo janataga viplavo yasmin pratishloka yabadavat yapi namanyananta se yashon kintani yach shinvanti gayanti grinanti sadava. On the other hand, that literature which is full with descriptions of the transcendental glories of the name, fame, form, and pastimes of the unlimited Supreme Lord is a transcendental creation, meant to bring about a revolution in the impious life of a misdirected civilization. Such transcendental literatures, even though irregularly composed, are heard, sung, and accepted by purified men who are thoroughly honest. Om Tat Sat, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami. Hare Krishna. Om Anganatirmirandasya Gananjana Shalakaya Chakshuran Militam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manobishtam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Svayam Kadamayan Dadati Svapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Utapada Kamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavamscha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Saganaragana Tanvitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadutam Parijana Saitan Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sagana Lalita Shri Vishakanvitamscha Hey Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dina Bandhu Jagat Pate Gopisha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Tapta Kanchana Gorange Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vishabhanu Sute Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Pancha Kalpata Yubhyascha Kripa Sindhu Bhyevacha Patitanan Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadara Shri Vasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prestaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swami Niti Namine Namaste Sarasvati Deve Gavani Pacharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Desha Tarine. Hare Krishna. It's January 31st, 2024. We're studying Srila Prabhupada's preface to his Srimad-Bhagavatam, just as I'm reading it, like literally every sentence, like this could be expanded into class and classes and courses. Just okay. So I'm just going to go through it and share some comments and realizations that come to me, and then I'll be very glad to hear. So we have Anasuya here with me in person, and from Prabhu Bhaktin came online. And all right, so first thing, it's like, first of all, this is written in 1962. Okay, so
Birth year.
birth year, there you go. So very auspicious. Same year that Prabhupada began publishing Bhagavatam and wrote this preface. And Prabhupada, he takes birth year seriously. You know, it was 1896, Prabhupada's birth year, that Bhaktivinoda Thakur published in English teachings and precepts of Lord Chaitanya, and he sent it to the West. And then later, like in Montreal, maybe 1967, one of Prabhupada's disciples, I think was Janardhan, he in like an academic university library in Montreal, he found this book by Bhaktivinoda. And then we can see there are several times as years go on, Prabhupada says, so Bhaktivinoda wrote that in 1896, and that's my birth year. And Prabhupada, he said that was significant. So the Bhaktivinoda sent that to the West the same year that the pure devotee who was born, of course, Prabhupada didn't refer to himself as a pure devotee, but the pure devotee was born that would come to the West. So Prabhupada gave significance there. So first, I'm just like Prabhupada's compassion and vision. So that definitely comes through here, compassion and vision. Like we must know the present need of human society. Again, so Prabhupada wrote this 1962, a few years before he came to America. And so Prabhupada was pretty much obscure. Okay, now his glories are more and more spread around the world, but he was like he struggled to get to publish, and he was living at Radha Damodar Temple. Of course, internally, he's always in the ecstasy of Krishna consciousness and the anxiety how to share it. So there's amazing vision here. We must know the present need of human society. So quite a vision. And this is a little different. Like usually we hear Prabhupada talks about modern consumerist materialistic society, and he's criticizing and disparaging about how people will never be happy like that. At the same time, here he's saying as human society is broader than in the Middle Ages, and he talks about there's a tendency towards oneness. And the Prabhupada goes on, at the present moment, human society is not in the darkness of oblivion. Now, in one sense it is, and we hear a lot about that from Prabhupada, like there's a spiritual oblivion, but technologically, and in terms of material comforts, there's so much advancement compared to the Middle Ages. So Prabhupada's giving credit there. And he's acknowledging that. And then he talks about there's this tendency towards oneness. And Prabhupada talks about like after World War I, there was the League of Nations. After World War II, the United Nations. That's politically. Even in science, right? Like Einstein discovered so much. But Prabhupada talks about Einstein a lot in very favorable light, like theory of relativity. It's very Vedic time. But then, like Einstein was working on a unified field theory and in physics and mathematics or something. It's like in all spheres, the unity. Okay. And right, so Prabhupada says this unity ideology, the need is felt by great thinkers to make this a successful ideology. Srimad-Bhagavatam will fill this need in human society for like oneness, for realizing our oneness with source, oneness with each other. It's a Chincha Beta Beta Tattva, oneness in the container of eternal distinctive identity. So just such full confidence in what Srimad-Bhagavatam will do. And then Prabhupada goes on that without this one that gives value to the string of zeros, then there's a pinprick somewhere in the social body at large, and therefore there are large-scale quarrels, even over less important issues. Not hard to find the truth of that, whether globally, personally, like that. And then Prabhupada, so Prabhupada, like it's like so empathic and attuned, because he's seeing there in the early 60s, there's this towards oneness. And now, the one world order, and like, what's it, the European Union, okay, we got all these European countries, but they can see that like back in 1776, there were different states in this new land, but the states came together in like one country. So like Europe's trying to do that, and that's the direction, And so Prabhupada writes, there's need of a clue as to how humanity can become one in peace, friendship, and prosperity with a common cause, Krishna consciousness. Srimad-Bhagavatam will fill this need, for it is a cultural presentation for the re-spiritualization of the entire human society. Later in this preface, Prabhupada's quoting Narada Muni about, and he's talking about his very rough, crude English in his, like that. And actually, I have a copy of that 1962 Bhagavatam there. And there's like lots of typos and things like that. And that's what Prabhupada's referring to. At the same time, Prabhupada's English is like amazing. Just like, we just look at the poetry of that.
Does it have the preface in it?
What's that?
Does it have the preface in it?
It does. It does.
Open to, yeah, thank you.
And for your information, Prabhupada puts the preface at the beginning of every volume,
Okay, but I wanted to just.
including the, yeah, no, it's special, it's
Yeah.
special. It does have the preface, the 1962 edition. So we can listen to this sentence. Srimad-Bhagavatam will fill this need, for it is a cultural presentation for the re-spiritualization of the entire human society. I mean, that's very eloquent, elegant, poetic, triumphant English. So then, Prabhupada goes, again, his vision, because he's speaking to leaders, intellectual leaders, political leaders. I mean, Prabhupada has a big vision when he's there in, a relative obscurity. Relative obscurity, at the same time, there's that picture, Prabhupada's presenting a set of his Bhagavatams to the president of India, Lal Shastri, I forget his name, like that. So, he has some recognition. So then Prabhupada goes to, look, Srimad Bhagavatam should be introduced in the schools and colleges. Right? So he went, this is like the one in front of the zeros for children's education and teenagers and young adults. Then he quotes Prahlad Maharaj. And again, Prahlad Maharaj, that section of Bhagavatam, including that first verse that Prabhupada quotes from the 6th chapter of 7th canto. Prahlad, he's about 5 years old. He's talking to his kindergarten classmates. They're like, come on, it's time to play. You can do spiritual stuff later. Prahlad Maharaj says, no, let's start Krishna consciousness now. And then, of course, Prabhupada gives a lot of lectures on that section of Bhagavatam. Okay, so much here. And then Prabhupada goes on, material science. Because earlier, Prabhupada's appreciating what material science has achieved. It's impressive. And then he goes on. Material science has tried to find the ultimate source of creation very insufficiently. Again, Prabhupada looking at that, the striving for the oneness. But it is a fact that there is one ultimate source of everything that be. This ultimate source is explained rationally and authoritatively in the beautiful Bhagavatam or Srimad-Bhagavatam. So again, we can see from Prabhupada's language, Srimad, a translation of Srimad, is beautiful. Srimad-Bhagavatam, beautiful Bhagavatam. Okay, and then he goes on to describe and glorify the Bhagavatam. And it is powerful reading matter in the Sanskrit language. And it is now rendered into English elaborately, so that simply by a careful reading, one will know God perfectly well, so much so that the reader will be sufficiently educated to defend himself from the onslaught of atheists. Over and above this, the reader will be able to convert others to accepting God as a concrete principle. I'm reminded, like in different sports, there's defense and there's offense, right? There's the defense. So Prabhupada, you can see his intention. Again, he's just giving the first volume of Bhagavatam. His intention is that the reader is to write and impact the heart and the mind in such a way that the reader is able to defend against any deviant, non-theistic, atheistic, Mayavad type philosophy, the defense, and get so strong from absorbing ourselves in Bhagavatam, we're able to effectively, powerfully go on offense. Over and above this, over and above the defense, the reader will be able to convert others to accepting God as a concrete principle. So just by the association of the reader of Prabhupada's Bhagavatam, just by the association, one is transformed towards God consciousness. So then, as Prabhupada comes towards the closure of the preface, Prabhupada, he's really giving some essential summary of those very first verses, really the first verse. The first 3 verses of Bhagavatam, it's Vyasadev's invocation. And so Prabhupada's sort of getting to the essence of those, especially that first verse. Srimad-Bhagavatam begins with the definition of the ultimate source. It is a bona fide commentary on the Vedanta Sutra by the same author, Srila Vyasadeva, and gradually it develops into 9 cantos up to the highest state of God realization. So some historical commentary here. So at one point, that was about maybe 300 years ago, thereabouts. I don't have my Gaudiya history so clear. So there was a king, I'm forgetting the names. And the king became, I think it was through Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur, the king became moved towards Gaudiya Vaishnavism. Okay. Yes. And then there were some like debates, and the idea is like, if you're basing anything on the Vedas, then you need a commentary on the Vedanta Sutra. And the impersonalist, it's called the Shariraka Bhashya. It's a commentary by Shankaracharya from 1500 years ago. And he's like the impersonalist commentator. He's actually a great devotee, and he's a partial incarnation of Lord Shiva, but that's a whole history. He brought people back to the Vedas from the nihilistic Buddhism, and he gave an impersonal commentary on the Vedanta Sutra, which is like a summary and code. Sutra means code, summary and code of the Vedas. And then the Gaudiya Sampradayas, the Vaishnava Sampradayas, each has their commentary. Ramanuja, that's the Sri Sampradaya, he has a commentary. Nimbarkacharya, that's the Shiva Sampradaya. Nimbarka Acharya, Vishnu Swami, the Sri Sampradaya, they have their commentaries. The Madhvacharya Sampradaya, that's called the Tattvavadis. They have that comes from Brahma, but it's not Gaudiya. It's all technical. So they have but the Gaudiya Sampradaya through Lord Chaitanya and 6 Goswamis, there's no Bhastya on the Vedanta Sutra, so it's not a bona fide line. So that's what some of the scholars were telling the king. It's not a bona fide line. They got no commentary. All right. So what we hear from Prabhupada, he gives some lecture on this, not too much. So Vishwanath Chakravarti, he sounded like he was in his pastimes. He was kind of old at that time, and he thought like it's not his service to write something. Now, see the Gaudiya Vaishnavas, they say is this like, of course we have a commentary on Bhagavatam. Srila Vyasadeva, he's the compiler of the Vedas and the Vedanta Sutra. And of course we have a commentary on the Vedanta Sutra. The Srimad-Bhagavatam is Vyasadeva's commentary on the Vedanta Sutra. This is the commentary. Just let's say if you have a painting from a great artist, okay, and it could have one line of art critics gives a commentary. Another school gives another commentary. Okay, fine. But then let's say you have the artist saying, okay, here's what this painting means. Here's why. Like that's like it does from the source, it doesn't get more authorized than that. So that's why, like, from Lord Chaitanya, 6 Goswamis, Krishna's Kaivrad, we don't need a commentary on the Bhagavatam. We don't need on the Vedanta Sutra. We got Srimad-Bhagavatam, that's a commentary, but still, due to different, maybe illusory conceptions. So this isn't credible, this line, Gaudiya Vaishnavism. So Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur asked Baladev Vijayabhushan, and he's there in our line. He was like a contemporary of Jagannath Das Babaji, 1700s thereabout. And he asked Baladev Vijayabhushan, okay, produce some commentary. That obviously is in the line of Vyasadeva. And then if we look at the beginning of Bhagavad Gita, since you're sitting right there, so you have it. If you can look at the dedication, the dedication.
The Srila Baladev Vidya
Bhushan.
Bhushan, okay. was presented so nicely, the Govinda Vaishnava commentary on Vedanta philosophy.
Thank you. So Baladevi Vibhushan, he wrote a commentary called the Govinda Bhashya. Bhashya means commentary. And Prabhupada dedicates his Bhagavad Gita to Baladevi Vibhushan, the author of Govinda Bhashya. Now what I hear from Prabhupada. So Baladevi Vibhushan said, write a commentary, well, I'm not qualified, Vaishnava humility. So he goes to the deity, and was it like, whether it was in like waking consciousness or dream consciousness, the deity, the Govinda deity, I think in Vrindavan, revealed to him the whole commentary he was supposed to write. So the commentary is directly from Krishna, from Govinda. Okay, so Prabhupada writes that the Bhagavatam, it's a bona fide commentary on the Vedanta Sutra by the same author as the Vedanta Sutra, Srila Vyasa. All right, and then Prabhupada goes, Prabhupada writes, the reading matter is so arranged with its original Sanskrit text, its English transliteration, synonyms, translation, and purports, so that one is sure to become a God-realized soul at the end of finishing the first 9 cantos. Just again, such clear confidence in the Bhagavatam. Maybe some of you have heard I have a personal story around that sentence. So, I started reading Prabhupada's books in 1980, about the same time I started taking prasad. And I was reading mostly his small books. Summer of 1983, I read Bhagavad Gita cover to cover. And then I'm in Israel, Danavir, who's now Danavir Maharaj, based at the Rupanuga Veda College in Kansas City. He gave me Nectar of Devotion, he gave me Krishna book. Krishna book is the 10th canto of Bhagavatam, just so we're clear on that. And so I started reading first canto, and then I started reading all of Prabhupada's books. And so like every 2 or 3 years, I would do a cycle of what I regard like Prabhupada's major 54 books. Including Bhagavatam in 30 volumes. When I say major, even the so-called not major books, they're completely transcendental and just like major, like his translations and purports on the ancient shastras, Bhagavad Gita, Bhagavatam, Chaitanya Charitamrita, Nectar of Devotion, Nectar of Instruction, Ishopanishad, Krishna book. Okay, so I would read, and just my reading, what I would do is pretty much I would read the translation in purport. I would read the English. And if there was like a verse, like I want to learn this verse, okay, then I would look at the Sanskrit, or I want to reference the Sanskrit, or like I'm reading the verse in purport, and then maybe I'll get curious about a word meaning. So I'll go to the word meanings, but I was not in any way systematically reciting the Sanskrit or like that. And so this was maybe around 2007, 2008. So I've been through the cycle. I've been through Bhagavatam several times, and that was about the time where Abhi was rejuvenating his devotional interest. Just hope he doesn't mind. I'm going to reveal. No, he was always devotional. I remember maybe he was about 8 years old, 2001, and we went as a family to New York City, and we did the Ratha Yatra down 5th Avenue. And it was like a really hot day. It was like June. It was like a really hot day. And Abhi's like 8 years old, but he just got it. And he was just, the whole way, he had the ropes, and he just pulled, and like miles and miles down 5th Avenue, and he pulled Lord Jagannath. And at the same time, he had one period of time where he was never opposed to the devotional practices, but there was one period of time externally he appeared more interested in Nintendo and things like that. He had like his video game phase. Okay, and then somewhere around maybe I'm 14 years old, he started coming out of that, and he got into chanting 16 rounds and this and that. So I just remember I went into his room, and I saw he was like reading Bhagavatam, and I noticed he was reading all the Sanskrit and the word for word. So I said, oh, wow, that's inspiring, that's interesting. And and he was like, well, Dad, of course. Didn't you see in the preface Prabhupada wrote, the reading matter is so arranged with its original Sanskrit text, its English translation, synonyms, translation and purports, so that one is sure to become a God-realized soul at the end of finishing the first 9 cantos. So he was like, obviously, that's how we're supposed to read it. Like for him, there was no option. So my last 2 cycles around the Bhagavatam, Mahajano Yena Gadasa Panta, I'm following in the footsteps of Abhi. I'm not sure if I'll do it next time, but so I read the Sanskrit, the word for it. So it's a personal family story. All right, okay, then Prabhupada talks about the 10th canto being special amongst the transcendental Bhagavatam. And then Prabhupada quotes the Tadva. Now this Tadvad Visargo, Tadvad Visargo Jantaga Viplavo. So Viplavo is translated as revolution, and we can see that in Prabhupada's translation. That literature, on the other hand, refers to the previous verse when Narada Muni says, yeah, Vyasadeva, Srila Vyasadevi, you compiled all these Vedas, but they're like pilgrimage places for crows. You'd think he's writing some junk Harlequin romance novels or something. He's writing the Upanishads, the Rig Veda, and Narada Muni's like, and it's like refuse. Because Narada said, people are not going to get the point. It's like it's there in some, convoluted way, but mostly it focuses on karma kanda, jnana kanda, different things. So on the other hand, that literature, which is full of descriptions of the transcendental glories of the name, fame, form, and pastimes of the unlimited Supreme Lord, is a transcendental creation, meant to bring about a revolution in the impious life of a misdirected civilization. So transcendental literature is, even though irregularly composed, so that's why Prabhupada's quoting this verse. Because again, like that Delhi edition, there's, spelling stuff and editing. So Prabhupada kind of knows that. And just to get an idea, just like, yeah. I remember even one of my first services back in Israel in the early 80s, I produced a newsletter. I still have some copies from 1984, the Israel Yatra newsletter. And even before that, in my Penn State days, I was producing catalogs for the Free University. So like, I'm just remembering, because now we have like copy and paste, copy and paste. And so, yeah. So like we would like cut something out, cut out like a word from somewhere, and then we would use glue. This was how we published things. We would use glue and paste it on the page, and before it went to the printer, so we would literally use scissors and glue. That was me, and I'm not 200 years old. Okay, yeah. That we were cut, and then glue, cut and paste. And so Srila Prabhupada, he didn't have like a team of assistants. In 1962, it was probably even more crude than what I was doing in the 70s and early 80s before desktop publishing and all of that. So just he really struggled. So Prabhupada's saying, I know there's mistakes here, I know there's faults, but I'm hopeful of its good reception by the thinkers and leaders of society on the strength of the following statement. And he quotes Narada Muni. So Prabhupada, he's writing for the leaders, the thinkers, and then he's writing for the school children and the college students, right? Such a vision. And this idea of like that the Bhagavatam, so it's a verse spoken by Narada Muni about 5,000 years ago to Srila Vyasadeva. And Narada Muni is talking about a revolution. So this is maybe I'll call it permissible conjecture, that Narada Muni is predicting 5,000 years later, Srila Prabhupada. Because if we look at the Bhagavatam, again, it was appreciated by Vaishnavas like that. Impersonalists gave him Shankaracharya, the great impersonalist leader, he stayed away from Bhagavatam. He didn't want to touch it because he was actually like, yeah, Shankaracharya, he has beautiful Vaishnava songs glorifying Krishna. And at the end of his life, he said, Bhaja Govinda, Bhaja Govinda, Bhaja Govinda, Buddha Mate. He says, my dear disciples, my dear, Muda means ass, my dear ass-like foolish disciples. He says, just give up your speculation and all your convoluted cognitive wranglings and just worship Govinda, worship Govinda, worship Govinda. Muda Mate, you foolish disciples. So that was the real essence of his teachings, but he needed to do some trickery for his service. But so of course the Bhagavatam's, appreciated, in different villages in India over the millennium. But if we look at history, we don't see anywhere where the Bhagavatam's creating like a global transformation of consciousness. We don't really see that. But Narada Muni is saying, no, this Bhagavatam is going to create a global transformation of consciousness. So he's like predicting Prabhupada, 1960s, 1970s, Prabhupada's Bhagavatam, creating a global transformation of consciousness. Hare Krishna. So I just went through some highlights of Prabhupada's phenomenal preface to the Bhagavatam, and I just unpacked a few threads that for me were particularly moving. Thanks for listening. Hare Krishna. And I welcome any sharing, questions, comments at this time.
Hare Krishna. So I just completed 31 days of the January challenge
Right.
with Lakshmi Priya
that's
this morning.
Amazing.
So we've been reading Srimad-Bhagavatam every morning. Every morning it is quite potent. And yeah, I'm really appreciating the mood that it's creating in my life as I start my day. And Mother Janava has recently been joining us for the last a week because she came over to Prabhupada's house last Wednesday, and so she's been tuning in every morning.
So she's coming in online.
She's coming. She's on that internet. So she calls Lakshmi Priya on her phone.
I see
and
that.
She puts the phone up to Zoom.
Yeah.
And so she can hear and express.
Beautiful.
So yeah, so we've been getting the benefit of a senior devotee that can give us so much knowledge and just insight to everything that she's experienced through Prabhupada directly, which is amazing. And but it gives me such more an appreciation of reading every day. I wasn't doing that. So this 2024 is starting off for me in a very big way to see the importance of reading and I like reading that early in the morning and not waiting, say, till after work and then before I take rest. Like I may read again, maybe something else, but I'm not, but having Srimad-Bhagavatam, so that was a really nice addition that Lakshmi Priya created.
Yes.
So that she was doing that every day in her personal practice, and she just took the challenge on to say, I'm willing to show up at 5 a.m. to benefit others that might want to read with me. Yeah. And so that's been really beneficial for those of us that have been participating, and for me especially, I've seen the potency of it. And the other part is that I appreciate that Srila Prabhupada gave us these translations. So one of the guests that had come to Prabhupada's house, the one that actually took home a set of Srimad-Bhagavatam, he had a set that he's reading from every day. And Lakshmi Priya said, may I see that? And she's like, oh, it's not Prabhupada. She's like, oh, you really want this set of the Srimad-Bhagavatam? And he has been in correspondence with her. Like he can see the potency of Prabhupada's words versus what he was reading.
You can feel
and so he's like discarded that, he put that away, and now he's reading Prabhupada's words. And so, I just didn't have that much appreciation until now. So just, I'm really experiencing it. And I was gonna see I was with my father earlier this morning, and I knew I wanted to come in person. And I just wanted to let you know that I am gonna keep it going. And I really see the value of reading from the Srimad-Bhagavatam.
Thank you, Anastasia. Very inspiring. So you're keeping the challenge going through February and 2024.
We're gonna check in with you once a month, but
Yeah.
you know, so far it's been really going steadily and people are showing up.
So inspiring. You know, you're sharing it reminds me of, you know, one of the sentences we highlighted. That like defense, like, okay, reading every day, just like that's so strengthening.
Mhm.
And then with that, over and above this, the reader will be able to convert others to accept God's goodness. So that with that, you have the potency that this gentleman was already familiar with Bhagavatam in some sense, but like you're giving the revolutionary,
Like real knowledge.
yeah, real knowledge that Prabhupada's Bhagavatam, and he's receiving it, you know, representing Prabhupada, and that's just about last Friday I came to your program, 5 to 6:30. It was wonderful. That's so wonderful. You're doing it every day for you, for the community, and you know, Mother Janova joins you regularly. Yeah, she's serving Prabhupada movement for like since the 1960s, and she's like especially empowered archivist of Srila Prabhupada. If anyone's been to her place, you can't be at her place for more than like 5 seconds before she's showing you these special relics from Srila Prabhupada and special empowered archivists. That's very beautiful. Thanks for sharing. Hare Krishna. Other comments, questions, sharing? Yeah. I know, because again, Prabhupada puts his preface before every volume, and I'm glad you have the 62.
Yeah.
62, it's special. Yeah, and the last time I remember choosing to read the preface at a program, I remember it was 2016. It was like shortly after Prampra and I got back from Bangalore and the 3 foundation courses there. And it was a program at their home, at the Mangum home in Gainesville, and somehow we studied this. I think once in a while, because Srila Prabhupada, you know, regarded the preface as so important, and I usually don't read it when I go from one volume to the next, but like to focus in on it, so enlivening. Hare Krishna. Okay. Thank you, Kim Prampra and Anasuya.
Mhm.
Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Srimad-Bhagavatam ki jai. Hare Krishna.